Captain's log, stardate 41309.5. We are in orbit around Persephone 5, where I have been sent to confer with Admiral Mark Jameson in regard to an extraordinary situation.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Pensky File. We are here continuing our Let's Watch of Star Trek The Next Generation. We're in Season 1, we're up to Episode 16. This one is called Too Short a Season. It was originally directed by Rob Bowman. Teleplay credit goes to D.C. Fontana and Michael Michaelian, and the story credit goes to Michael Michaelian as well. It originally aired way back in February 8th, 1988. So the short plot synopsis for this one is that the Enterprise is transporting an elderly admiral named Mark Jameson to deal with a hostage situation on the planet Mordan 4. And before he came aboard the Enterprise, Jameson took a drug to reverse his aging process, and he's going toe-to-toe with a former adversary. And this adversary is the one linchpin to this whole hostage situation. So that's it. Too short a season. Let's see what else we have to do here. We're joined this episode by Clay. Again, he was last here for Angel 1. And you can follow Clay at Dead Meat Comic on Twitter. You can go to eatdeadmeat.com, check out his stuff. Otherwise, you can follow me and the show at That Pensky File on Twitter. That's That Pensky File. Someone took the Pensky File, and that's ruined my life for the rest of these days. But anyway, you can go to Twitter, follow us there. If you're watching on YouTube, it would be greatly appreciated if you could leave a like if you enjoyed this content, and leave a comment or two. And if you're listening on iTunes, a rating or review would also be much, much appreciated. So thank you guys again for listening. And let's get to Too Short a Season with Clay.
Captain, no one recovers from Iverson's disease. There's no known cure. There have been no cases where it's gone into remission. I have never heard of any therapy that would produce results like that.
And how do you account for it?
I can't. All I can tell you is that the Admiral has been confined to his support chair for the last 4 years by the effects of Iverson's. By all the medical facts we know, he should never have walked again.
Hey everybody, welcome back. So, Too Short a Season, the 16th episode of Season 1. And we're here with Clay again, and...
What's up? I like what you've done with the place. You've painted your room like the holodeck.
We've got yellow lines, black paint, just like my Angry 16s. So, we just watched Too Short a Season, which was the episode, you probably heard it in the intro. Elderly Admiral gets pulled back to a planet where he has some history and he has to deal with his predicament. And he takes an anti-aging drug to get rid of his horrible age of 85. So I figured since we're not doing a plot recap, I'll just start off with some thoughts about this episode. Or we'll each give like a deep thought, like Jack Handy. It's this episode is, it could have been something, and they put so many goddamn angles into it that eventually everything just kind of crumbles into a ridiculous ending.
It does something that I don't know if this is, it's been so long since I've watched a lot of these. I don't know if this is common, but they did the same thing in the last one I did, Angel 1, but they paid it off a little bit more in this episode, where they give you a setup of something that's like really Star Trek-y. Like they say, oh, there's terrorists and there's hostages, etc., etc. But the meat of the episode takes place either away from that or on the way to that.
Yep.
And this one, at least, it was tied into the actual story and had a payoff. Whereas in Angel 1, it was just a throwaway plot point that meant nothing.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with it. Yeah, they do. I don't think that sticks around. They do that a lot in Season 1, where it's like getting to whatever the problem is most of the adventure as opposed to actually solving things.
It's an interesting way to structure it. It's more... I mean, after... Star Trek is... Star Trek...
As a beer spill, you'll hear the light pitter-patter on the end of this. Sorry, go ahead.
The structure of Star Trek traditionally is so much, we're going to tell you what the problem is, and then we're going to send the away team down to address the problem, and we're going to shoot stuff, and then, not all of them, but, that tends to be it.
Yep.
So, approaching it in sort of like a roundabout way is definitely a more interesting way to tackle that stuff.
Yep.
But you can fall into traps where you get something like Angel 1 where the stuff that's off screen is way more interesting.
Yep.
This one at least had some pretty interesting stuff going on as far as what the old admiral was doing and, his DA. As soon as you see that there's bad old man makeup, you can kind of figure out what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's like, I think I saw this somewhere, but it's like, if you're going to do an episode like this, why don't you cast you cast an old man and then you cast it, because the minute an old man shows up in old age makeup, you're like, oh, well, something's going to be going down here where he's going to fix himself. But, I wrote, I think it would have been better as I thought the best, story theme was the revenge angle that they went on. And I wrote down that they tacked on the old age thing, which was the initial problem, but it went away. And then there was guilt at what the Admiral had done where he gave those people the weapons and they had a civil war for 40 years. But I thought the revenge thing was like the only interesting one by the end of the episode.
The one thing that I thought was the most interesting part was when he talks about what he did, why he feels so guilty, about how he had to deal with a hostage negotiation with this guy Karnas initially, and the way that he solved it was by giving Karnas weapons, but also giving weapons to everybody else because it was, quote, his interpretation of the Prime Directive, which is really messed up, but really, really fascinating. That's like something like Khan would do. It's a really interesting way to approach that problem and not really feel like you're breaking any rules. That's a really fascinating angle.
No, and they did that, and I think it just ties into the overall problem where it's like they're like, let's bring up an interesting point. Oh, fuck it, let's move on to something else. And it's like his whole Prime Directive thing is interesting. His whole feeling guilty for what he's done is interesting. It's all dressed up in this sort of just eventually turns into nonsense. Like I love how it ends too. It's just sort of there's chaos everywhere. People are yelling at each other very theatrically, and Picard is looking pissed off at the whole thing.
Picard's face for the whole episode is like a cross between not knowing what's going on and smelling a really gross fart.
Yeah, he's just, the actor he's holding at the end is very sweaty, and he's
just hoping he can wash his hands soon.
Yeah, Picard is not a very good captain in this episode.
Yeah,
when Jameson has his secure, I love how they just they call it a secure channel.
Oh yeah,
it's okay. So he talks to Karnas, and then he has like a 20-minute conversation with him, and he comes out and he goes, "We have to get there. Things have changed." And Picard goes, "How do you know that?"
Yeah, that's the secure channel thing was strange because well, let's put it this way: if you're the captain of the ship and you're already suspect that as soon as this admiral shows up, he says, "I'm in charge of this mission. You just stay out of my way."
Yeah. And
then he starts de-aging to the point where he looks like he's 25.
Yeah.
And then he just shows up after talking in secret to the bad guy or whatever for 20 minutes.
Another shadowy person.
Yeah, another shadowy figure, and comes back and says, "Things have changed. We have to change the mission." He took that rather well.
Yep.
And was pretty passive about everything. Also, I did notice that I don't know if Picard mentioned what was happening to this guy, what was happening to the Admiral, to everybody else on the ship, but nobody seemed shocked when he showed up and was 20.
Yeah, that's
like nobody.
It's a hot bit of gossip. Sure, it went around the ship.
Well, once you tell it to Crusher, I mean, Crusher is just tells everybody everything.
It's just an open book. No, it's definitely true. It's Picard is not very good. I mean, there's also the I don't know. There's a couple of minor points there. The admirals in Star Trek are always bad. You wonder how anything ever gets done because he's the first admiral. Although, well, this is a little bit sidetracked, but in the pilot they had Admiral McCoy, the doctor.
That's the old man makeup was reminding me of that because his makeup in that episode's pretty bad.
And what's weird in that one is McCoy is an admiral and he's touring the ship at the start of Encounter at Farpoint, and he says that he is 120 years old.
Right.
Which makes sense. They're in the future. You'd be like, oh, people are probably going to live till they're 120 and look like McCoy does. it brings into the weird distraction here where Jameson comes on and he goes, "I'm 85," and you go, "People, 85 now look."
Well, he did have.
He has a disease,
Allen Iverson's disease or whatever it was called.
right? Which, but it goes in the how distracted everything is. They go, "He's old." You go, "Okay, he's old." And they go, "No, he's sick. He's also sick." You go, "Okay, he's sick as well." Like, and he's got his wheelchair, but they never stress.
Well, he's got Professor X's wheelchair
from the 70s.
Yeah, from the X-Men cartoon, the yellow one that like floats around.
And Captain Pike in the original series had the same thing. Yeah. So, but I mean, it's like, is he old or is he sick? Mm-hmm. If he's sick, why do you have him to have to be old? Can't he just be someone who's like, I took this to get better because this illness is preventing me?
Yeah.
But no, they start off with he's old, so you're like, oh, he's got to relive his past. No. He's sick. He's only 85, and he's sick.
He's an old-looking 85.
Old 85.
Yeah.
And it also, what I thought was, so it's never good, I think, this is my original point, in the first season of episode, when you're 15 episodes in, to have a guest star steal the show, and the rest of the cast is just sort of along for a ride while this guy does whatever he does.
Very, very passive. Everybody else, yes.
And they make up script points where it's like, I command the mission, you just fly the ship. And like, you bring me where I need to be.
You know, going back to what you're saying about Picard not being a very good captain, I was, when they got towards the end, I was thinking, okay, Picard's going with them down to this hostage negotiation. He's clearly got something planned, right? But his plan ended. I thought he was going to somehow outthink the other guy or do something kind of cool. But his plan basically was just to go, no, really, it's the right guy. He's just de-aging himself.
I have a movie that is 3 frames that will show you that this
Here
guy,
are 3 pictures.
Here I took on my iPhone of this guy de-aging.
Yeah, like it's not even like he uses that as a jumping off point to talk about something else. He's like, no, really, seriously, trust me. It's the same guy.
I know this sounds crazy.
While the guy, Karnas is actually the guy, Ivan Drago's guy from Rocky IV.
Yes, I think he's a character actor I think I've seen before. Like
he pops up in lots of stuff.
He sounds very familiar.
Yeah, no, he was great.
Yeah, you could see him as sort of the like a mafioso in like an early 80s type action movie or something.
But yeah, it just like devolves into a shouting match, and I don't know. And like, there was nothing interesting. I mean, the other thing they could have done that was interesting is when they beam down initially, the first time they try and, raid the place.
Yeah, which, not to strike, but a failed away mission.
Yes.
You hardly ever see a failed away mission.
But that was interesting because they're following, again, everybody else is being very passive, but they're following this guy who is, much older and doesn't know where he's going because his memory, things have changed. And then they just kind of bail on that whole idea.
Yeah.
It could have been really interesting had the away mission been more of the episode, and you kind of dealt with
the theme of him being stuck in his ways and not really screwing
and
everybody over.
Even though he is younger, his memory is still old. That kind of something, something like that.
Yep.
They didn't really do a lot with the. I mean, even the whole. He's getting younger because he wants to be at his peak to do. I don't know.
Yeah. What did I write down? It kind of summed up the episode where when Picard and him have a meeting, Picard asks him why he did this, and he gives no answer, which I think is very fitting for the episode in general, because you're given a lot of his wife seems to think it's because he's an asshole, and he just wanted to relive.
That's the other thing. I don't know about his wife, but like that first time he freaks out like he's having a heart attack, she was just like, she took that really well for a guy who looks like he's going to die at any moment.
The Starfleet life insurance payment is very, very good.
And then when he tells her that he's de-aging, she's like, you jerk, why didn't you give me some of that stuff?
I ate it. I ate it all.
It's like the concept just, breezes right by her. She's totally cool with it.
Yep.
But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, Picard asks him why he does it. He says nothing.
Yeah.
His wife accuses him of being an asshole. It's another confusing point of, if he's old, it makes no sense that he does this.
Right.
His sickness kind of, if they couldn't just beam his chair down and he could just be there in his wheelchair, because he gains nothing. It actually serves only to mess up the script because you have to spend 10 minutes with Karnas going, who is this? And Picard going, it's Jameson.
And then yelling louder, who is this? Who is this?
So, it his logic makes no sense because it's so confused as to why he would take this drug in the first place.
Yeah.
He seems to think he needs to be younger, although his youngness gives him no advantage whatsoever. It only confuses things. And the only other positive side effect is that it cures his disease, but it kills him at the same time. So
yeah, and there's no like, it's a very sort of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of thing, where the guy tests the volatile thing on himself for his own selfish reasons. Yep. But at the end of the story, he has some sort of moralistic realization that, X, Y, and Z, that kind of thing.
Yep.
There was really none of that.
No.
He just kind of came down, proved that he was the young guy, and then dropped dead.
And Karnas was happy with that.
So yeah, he wasn't, but he wasn't just happy. It was like he reacted as though some like equal or something had what's that awful line he gives about like
our long night is over.
Sleep well. Your long night is over for both of us.
It's true. No, Karnas, it's the whole. Yeah, it's just it continues the script problems. He's arguing and he's like, "I'm going to kill you, Jameson."
Yeah. He
pulls a gun and then he goes, "No, this is better." Then Jameson dies and he goes, "Farewell, sweet prince."
Yeah.
He's gone 180 degrees in the span of about 10 minutes about how he feels about this guy.
Yeah, and the admiral does nothing.
No.
Except for
Picard carries the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And the admiral sits there shaking and sweating.
Does he even actually officially apologize for what he did the first time?
Never apologizes to Karnas. No, that's the there's no resolution to any of the storylines.
The one interesting thing, the one point that Picard does get onto a little, where I thought this was going to be the point where he outthinks him and talks him out of something, is when he's like, "Well, he gave you the weapons, but you didn't have to use them," which is a weak defense, but is the best thing he had, I guess. And even at that point, Karnas is like, "You're no, that's not it." But that's pretty much the only moral swing any of these characters has.
Yeah. Done via Picard.
And Picard at the end just looks like, what the hell am I doing here?
No, I do. We were laughing about it during the episode, but if you rewatch this episode, when Jameson is on the ground about to die, just watch Patrick Stewart's acting the entire scene. He looks so disgusted by what is going on, and he's forced to hold this character that he seems like he's just like, oh my god, this guy's
drenched in sweat.
And he's acting terribly.
That guy was overdoing it a tad.
All right, so I guess we can get into the way you'd fix this episode to me. If you did very little plot changing, is I don't understand if you want this to be your story. Why is Jameson an asshole? This story is so much more effective if he is a racked with guilt, good guy,
right,
who is sacrificing himself sort of as some kind of retribution for his sins or whatever. But instead, he's an asshole who is constantly yelling at people.
Yeah.
And it's just when he dies, you're like, well, fuck him. Who cares? If there had been, and I don't know if that's what they were trying to do by bringing his wife on. His wife adds nothing to these proceedings.
Yeah, except for a weird pseudo love scene where he's like, "Hey,
you're taking me to the bedroom.
I'm younger now. You want to see what it's like to bone on a spaceship?" It was just ugh.
No,
it's really creepy.
The only reason to include her is if you're trying to get that emotional, she's sad that he, to have someone else who knew him actually be upset that he's dead.
Yeah.
But the episode completely falls apart because Jameson is a dick, and you don't feel bad about him dying or his mission.
Yeah.
If he had been likable, I think the episode might have actually been an okay episode, because that's an interesting thought about, you fucked up 40 years ago, and now you have to go back and fix it. And at that point, you can be like, the de-aging is symbolism, so you're trying to get back to that point to fix everything.
Right,
and it's
right.
But instead, they focus too much on it, and it all crumbles.
Yeah, and even if, I don't know, if there was something where, if he had some sort of realization that being younger wouldn't fix anything, that something like that, where he has to become. There was no point where he really had to deal with the life that he had lived up to that point.
Yeah.
And, that's kind of one of the things that you can play with when you have that de-aging thing, is when you realize, your character realizes that, going back and being 20 again does not change anything that's happened, nor does it make me any better of a man than I was then.
Right, exactly.
And there is no point in the episode where he realizes
that is considered.
Realizes, because the whole point of the de-aging thing, like you were saying, it could be as a personal metaphor for wanting to go back and fix things. But he doesn't go back and fix things. He goes back when he becomes 20 again and says, "You know what? Fuck it. Let's just invade them this time and kill everybody."
40 years ago, I went down in this hole, and I do like his just brazen dismissal of Data. He's like, I just thought of it was like baseball sabermetrics. It's like Data's like, actually, striking out is kind of bad. And he's like, no, sometimes striking out is strategic, Data. And it's like, all right, well, good for you, buddy.
You haven't looked at my OPS.
I'm out there every day. And just
I have the same slugging percentage I had when I was 20.
Run that through your computer. The Jameson's also this is always hard. I always wonder when you do like Oscar season and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's so hard to film is so hard to break apart who's responsible for what.
Right.
I think this actor is terrible, but I can't tell if the directors and the production team were like, make this old man sound like Bruce McCullough doing an old man in Kids in the Hall. Why? Well, he's such a cartoon of an old man. He's like, I can't do anything that.
He kind of sounded like he had like a Yoda thing going on.
A little bit. He's talking in his throat. It's very He's smacking his lips and stuff. But
I'll be back on Starship.
He's only 85. Iverson's only seems to affect his walking. Yeah. It's just like
if I had to get, so I don't know how early in his career this episode was, but it was directed by Rob Bowman, who was the go-to guy on the X-Files. Directed, at least 50% of all the best episodes in the X-Files. Mm-hmm. First X-Files movie. He knows how to direct TV. Knows how to direct stuff. Knows how to make things look good. I would like to assume that the idea was, we've got 25 episodes we have to shoot. This guy shows up, does the first take, and then everybody else goes, oh, fuck, is this what he's going to do the whole episode?
He's in 80% of the script.
Yeah, he's in 80% of the script. We've got to get this shot by, lunchtime. We don't have time to go work this out.
Or it's the, during casting, he's doing this thing. He's talking like that. And the production team's like, oh, Jesus, this is bad. And then as he's finishing, Roddenberry walks in. He goes, this guy's perfect.
This guy's perfect for a starship.
This is exactly what the captain needed.
Yeah, maybe he was just doing a Gene Roddenberry impression.
Roddenberry rides in on his leather or his plastic wheelchair. And just
the other thing is, I don't know. I know that it's tough to act through, because I've been in so many prosthetic makeups. But the thing that you hear is it's tough to act through that stuff. And
right, you need to get big.
I could see him feeling like he needs to overdo it a little bit,
and it's big in general. Like
even when he's
ending
younger.
ending Carnass scene is they're like, guys, we have time for one wide shot of everybody. Just do very theatrical acting to get this across.
The makeup on the Admiral goes from old man to Teen Wolf right before he turns into the werewolf, where he's shaking and he's sweating and his eyes are red.
And they've sort of teased his hair out a little bit. They're like, he's got sweat in his hair. Just
also,
to spray it out there.
Little technical nerd moment, but if he's got a scar on his arm and he's de-aging and healing, shouldn't that scar go away?
I'm glad you brought this up, because I don't know what to think about that. I would assume no. And I also feel he should have done that at the beginning instead of 20 minutes into his spiel.
Yeah, it could have saved him a lot of time.
Or, if it's a good script, you write that at the beginning of the script. Like, he's like, these are my scars from when I was whatever. It's like, they don't do any of that. But, it's like Looper.
Oh, yeah.
When they were torturing the guy and he's slowly missing body parts as he's trying to find himself as they're torturing him.
Right.
So I feel he should have the scar. Although it doesn't make sense that he would get rid of his disease at that point, unless they somehow clarify that it's like a neurological aging disease. But they don't do that.
I mean, I don't know. If scars are technically not a
wound. It's true. I think some other podcast I listened to had brought that up and was very annoyed by the fact that the scar was still there.
What it comes down to is it's hacky right.
Yeah. I
mean, you could dissect something stupid like that all day if you really wanted to. But what it comes down to is it's a bad way to get something like that, that across.
Right. And you realize too late that you have no way of proving. Yeah. So you're we have to do this.
The thing that's hilarious is it's almost like they were doing that confrontation scene. They were improvising it.
Yeah.
Because when they show up at the end, there's this weird, awkward, stilted silence with the guy be like, "Who's that?" And then there's an awkward pause, and Picard's like, It's the Admiral.
Is my line?
No, it's not. No, really. It's the Admiral. And the Admiral's just standing there, not saying anything. Nobody else is saying anything. It's like they didn't have the last 3 pages of the script. And they needed to fill 5 minutes or something.
It's it's bad improv where he's saying no, and he's like, God damn it, you can't say no. You have to go with what I'm telling you. And
Yes, and I don't think it is.
And the only thing Jameson ever thought, he calls him Praetor or something. And he's like, I haven't been called that in 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's this is the best you can do. It's the best you can tell this guy is his old rank or whatever it was.
Yeah, and they do the thing where it's there was only 2 of us in that meeting, and you told me something that probably you've told to other people as well. It's not like we were...
You told me the first time you had anal with your wife. We had the filthiest conversation. He's like, oh boy, oh Jesus. No, and it all just crumbles at the end. He dies, and then it's a very happy ending for all of this disaster that is just.
And where are the hostages? There's no hostages. I mean, there's not even a moment where Picard's 14 to beam up. It's just they're back on the ship. Everything seems fine down on the planet now that this guy's dead.
No, that should be the way to end. They ended you would imagine it would end with Picard and some hostages being back. Riker meets him in the they just have a little discussion as they walk in. The end of the episode ends. Instead, everyone's very pleased. Picard is like, well, it's time to go out on another adventure. The Admiral's dead.
It's like they cut back to the bridge, and Picard's like, huh. Old people are the worst. It's you're right, Captain.
Picard sits in his chair. He's like, let's get the fuck out of here. And Data and Geordi give each other this look.
Yeah, they basically fist bump with their eyes.
But it's what is that look supposed to signify? Why did they focus on that?
That look is everybody on the ship going yeah, that guy fucking sucks.
We buried him on the planet. That was his widow's wishes. Karnas, they're still at civil war. I don't think this solved the Civil War.
It didn't solve anything. We don't even know if they got the hostages out.
No, we haven't seen the hostages.
There could not have been any hostages at all.
And if there weren't any, Starfleet operates on some flimsy information at this point.
Actually, that would have probably been a better ending. If they got down there and there's no hostages and the whole place is destroyed and it's just that guy wanting revenge, that would have been a cool ending.
And someone else had mentioned something. Do you think Starfleet was complicit in this arms deal? And that's why they're trying to. That's why they have to do this stuff, because Starfleet knows what he did was wrong, and they're trying to cover up this sort of hootenanny. I don't think that's implied in the episode, but it makes a lot of sense as to why that would happen.
Yeah, I mean, I could buy that. I mean, they do talk about how the historical record being different from the way it actually played out.
Down. And you'd assume he'd have other people there.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not. It's just. It would be an interesting way to, because there is an episode coming up later where there is shown to be a Starfleet conspiracy of the higher ups, and it would have been a nice way to lead into that with that sort of.
Well,
thing.
I guess you kind of have to think maybe because he's giving enough weapons to supply 2 armies.
Yep.
Do they just have those on his ship, or?
Well, it goes into a Starfleet thing of. They show replicators. I'm like, why can't you replicate everything?
Yeah.
And eventually they get to the point of, they do a lot of... The Enterprise was built at Utopia Planitia, I think, if I'm being nerdy enough. That's where these...
Sure.
It's built on Mars. But my argument was always why can't you build a giant replicator and just replicate endless ships out of it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why do things have to be physically built? Same with the weapons. Why can't you just replicate these weapons?
Just like a giant 3D printer.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, imagine in 400 years, 3D printing is going to be pretty fucking amazing.
You could make full-size starships, or you could make little tiny maquettes of characters you've created yourself.
No, absolutely. It's there's 2 points I wanted to make. One of them is cool. The other one is just kind of goofy. I did like the fact that on the back of Karnas are actual phasers used in old Star Trek episodes.
There? I didn't even notice that.
So those are like official,
a good detail.
Which is nice. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And then his wheelchair was apparently like this huge hassle for production.
Oh, really?
It cost $10,000.
Oh, Jesus.
And it didn't work. So
what did it have to do?
The only scene that they got it working was where he comes into his apartment and he talks to his wife.
Oh, it moves by itself?
It's supposed to move.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, because every other shot, they had to just have it sit there.
Right.
And it cost $10,000, and that's eventually why he just gets out of it so quickly. It's just like, well, I don't need this anymore.
They created the de-aging plot line because the chair didn't work.
This chair is broken.
How do we get out of this quickly?
So yeah, apparently it was a huge disaster for the production team to get through it.
That's such like a tiny thing to not. It feels like that shouldn't. I don't know. That's a really expensive prop.
And well, the other weird thing is when they beam him aboard with him and his wife. We also were laughing when he says, "I'll be over at 1500 hours."
Yeah.
And Picard goes, "What time is it?" He goes, 1500 hours. He goes, "Oh, okay." And they just walk there. And so he's basically coming over now, but he refuses to say, "I'm going to head over." They beam him onto the transporter, which has no handicap ramp to get off of.
Well, it's got a floating chair.
Does it float, or is it just... It doesn't even do anything.
It doesn't not float.
Why can't they just beam people not to the transporter bay? They do it all the time.
Yeah,
that's the weird thing.
I've never understood how that works, because I mean...
Unless you have to go through customs. Like, is there a customs agent outside? Is like, thank you.
Well,
Admiral.
I mean, they pick people up from random spots.
And,
I don't know why they just don't beam them to random spots.
I think they argue later that it's very risky. Maybe no, it's risky to do ship to ship at warp. I think they argue something later on that it's risky to do spot to spot, like you doing it through a transporter makes it more reliable. Make
sense. Yeah, I would buy that.
It's just it's a funny little breakdown. But yeah. I mean, before we wrap up, it's just I had a couple other notes of Counselor Troy makes no sense in this episode. Mm-hmm. They direct the cinematography early on is very clear that she does not believe anything he's saying, and she does not mention this to Picard.
Yeah, no, it's I couldn't understand that at all, because they very clearly make an implication that she catches something wrong,
that he's lying,
but she just never shows up again.
No, Riker pushes over into her seat, and
the only other time she shows up is when all the girls are talking about
they have a girl
having their girl chat time. Which
I feel is inappropriate for your doctor.
Yes.
Doctor, don't tell my spouse that I'm dying before you tell me that I'm dying.
Also, I'm not entirely clear on how he died, because they said he's
unstable.
Yeah, he's unstable. He was continuing to de-age, but he didn't get any younger. He just died.
Having the same pains as the old man.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, go ahead.
No, I mean, I don't know if that's a script change or something, because they obviously stress the point that Troy knows he's lying.
Right.
She does nothing and is mysteriously gone for most of the episode, except for the girls' night out. And then, did I have anything? Picard had a lot of gizmos on his desk. I thought that was funny.
And he had like, I don't know.
A ton of iPads just sprayed out.
Non-moving iPads.
And the only other minor thing that I thought was so silly in this episode, just because I watch a lot of them, but there was a lot of people just calling each other straight by their name in a somewhat disrespectful way. Jameson always just goes Picard.
Yeah.
And when Picard beams down, he goes, Riker, you have the bridge. Instead, they usually they usually put Commander Riker, you have the bridge, or Captain Picard, thank you for this, or Admiral Jameson. There's a lot of people just calling each other by their names in a very aggressive
manner. I didn't notice that, but now that you say it, yeah. That is a weird thing.
But yeah, that's...
Talk about people who had nothing to do. All Riker had to do in this episode was, stand in the background and look dreamy.
Yeah, and go back on the promise he made to Picard in the pilot that he would never let his captain go into danger. And this time, he is happily content to let Picard go into danger, and then Picard is just willy-nilly. He's like, hey, bring the Admiral's wife down to this hostage situation.
Why does Picard go down on the first thing?
That is a prime Riker mission.
Oh, yeah.
We are going to encounter heavy gunfire.
Yeah.
How about you go down and handle this?
Yeah. And
Riker doesn't even give an objection.
No. Well, at least this time they didn't send everybody that mattered. So the only person flying the ship was Dr. Crusher.
Yep. And I guess it was just the Yar has nothing to do in this episode. Worf's one line is get down or something, and he tackles the Admiral so he doesn't get shot. It's just that's what happens when you bring a guest star on. Yeah,
I think episodes like this are probably what urged her to want to leave.
Yep.
But it's unfortunate because, the times that she does pop up and do things, it's like, I feel like they could have done a lot with her if they actually kind of, thought about it a little more than they did.
Yep.
But, I mean, if you have an episode where even Picard has nothing to do, then I don't think, she got to shoot a bunch of dudes, so that's something. Some
guys who are incredibly jumping behind trash cans.
Also, who knew phasers could cut through like 8 inches of steel?
Yep.
Is that something that could do?
Phasers are very up to whatever the situation needs to be.
Requires,
They eventually come up with a setting system, I think. I think it's 1 to 16, and 16 is like instant destruction of whatever it hits.
I would use that one all the time.
Phasers are set on kill, sir. Thank you, Mr. Data. I am familiar.
That was a good line.
Not one for subtlety.
Those guys they sent down to shoot at them were just like, they looked like they were out of like a bad 80s futuristic RoboCop ripoff or something.
It's how people who play paintball now work. Yeah. Those are the kind of outfits.
They're weird tie-dye camouflage.
Yeah, so it's too short a season.
More like too short an episode.
If only. I'll give it a 2. My 2 out of 5 for these ratings here. It's not an abomination. I feel like it could have been. It could have been a really. I don't know if it would have been really good. It would have been a solid episode if they had decided on something.
I feel like if they had tackled this idea in a later season, I think they probably would have done a better job with it. Do you have anything that's been a 5 yet?
Not in the first season.
No. Not even Data Lore?
No, Data Lore's a 3. It's mostly based on... 5 is like a classic. 5 will be the top 10. Okay. There'll probably be 10 5s. 4s would be a very, very good episode that I would show a non-fan and be like, this is okay. A 3 is a whatever, which is Data Lore.
Right.
It's as good as season 1. Get it to whatever. 2 is a bad, and then 1 is just like, what the hell is this? There have been a couple 1s in season.
Yeah.
But I know, I'll keep surprised, but I do know the first 5 when it appears.
Oh, yeah.
I have a long way to go. But it does come. There are some 4s coming. There hasn't been a 4 yet, either. Mm-hmm. And there are 4s that come in season 2. But yeah, that's about it for that episode. It could have been something. It was not. Some good ideas that I didn't think really managed to build up to anything, and then just some terrible acting from a guest star manages to sink it down to a 2. Any final thoughts?
I'd probably say based on that scale, I would probably give it a 2. It wasn't as bad as Angel 1.
No, Angel 1 is a 1.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with what you said. I think there's some interesting things they could have dealt with. I kind of wish they at some point in the series circled back on that interpretation of the Prime Directive thing, because I find that really interesting.
Yeah,
especially if you're looking at it. If you're thinking Starfleet was involved, that's such a
legal,
a legal loophole.
Yeah,
to be like, well, if we give everybody weapons, technically we're not violating the Prime Directive.
We haven't changed anything. No, it's true. It isn't, and it's such a throwaway line in this.
Yeah,
as he's sitting in the shadows sniffing brandy and hanging out.
Yeah, I would sum it up by saying meh with missed opportunities.
Yeah. Missed opportunities indeed. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and thank you, Clay, for coming in.
Thank you for having me back.
And I'll be back with the bow breaks, something like that. Episode 17 will come out Thursday. But thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time.